G'day folks. Thought I'd do a little bit of a wander around the backyard. We don't have a lot in production at the moment here food wise, but I thought I'd give you a bit of a look anyway. Just run you through some plans and some bits and pieces that Bianca and I have been talking about trying out next season. I've got a couple of small projects on the go. Lost a bit of footage when the computer crashed the other week, but yeah, I've learned to back up weekly now. So yeah, I'll just run you through them just quickly, just give you a bit of an idea what's going on. I might try and tack together a bit of a clip at a later date on them. But yeah, I suppose we'll have a bit of a wander. So I decided to clean up the mess that was at the back of the stairs here. I was working on a clip for this one but lost it. Here we had a big green half a rainwater barrel. It was a 500 litre one. It had Mayer's mint plants in it and also an RG Amarillo and some sweet potato and some other bits and pieces. I pulled what I could out of there, got a few sweet potato tubers and took out the RG Amarillo, which is that chilli just there. It was very large, very bushy, so what I decided to do was to trim it right back. We'll zoom in actually. So this chilli, I pretty much will just left these branches on so the plant can continue to photosynthesize using these leaves and bounce back once it was transplanted into the root pouch. It's still got the wet pot irrigation bulb in there as well, so that's what's irrigating it. And as you can see, whole heap of new little stems and growth has decided to sprout, so I think it's pretty much all right now for me to snip off these large long stems and just let the plant bounce back from there. And I managed to harvest myself a chilli, so that's a bit of a bonus. The great thing with these root pouches is the roots are going to grow out. They'll hit the side of the breathable fabric. These ones here are a non-biodegradable one, so they'll last for years. The roots will hit the outside of the fabric. They'll try and grow through. They'll hit the dry air outside. They'll prune themselves off. Basically, they'll die off all by themselves and back towards the stem of the plant. Brand new roots will come out. And what ends up happening is you end up with a massive, healthy root ball and a plant that can grow, a large plant that can grow in a smaller container. So that's the basic idea behind using these fabric pots or pouches. I think I'm pretty much all going to use them wherever I can in the yard now. So what I decided to do is I put all the dwarf trees in there as well. Actually, the strawberry guava isn't a dwarf, that's the plant in the middle. That's a full-size tree, but it is in a root pruning pouch. On the end here we have a dwarf fig and a dwarf mulberry, which I pruned back when he got transplanted in. They've each got a wet pot in there as well, just irrigating them. So these trees were pretty neglected. They've been in there for around 2 years now, so hopefully once they were repotted into here with the new compost mix that went in, a bit of organic fertilizer, a bit more new soil and the root pruning ability of these pouches, hopefully these plants are going to bounce back really well. I've taken some mulberry cuttings and put them in the aquaponics. I took 5, only one's survived, but you know, I'm pretty happy with that. But this fig over on this end, I'm going to take some cuttings off him later on in the season when he starts to go dormant, and we'll try and strike them in the aquaponics as well and see how we go. Just down here we have a bit of an experiment I'm doing. This is a Larry Hall style hybrid kiddie pool in the making. Basically you've got your root pouches in here, the air pruning pouches. They sit in a little bit of water. The water wicks up through the base of the material into the root zone of the plant. Yeah, it's basically like a wicking bed sort of arrangement. Larry uses a lot of 1 gallons, but I thought I'd try some larger ones because I got some thyme and sage in there. We've got some basil in there. I actually want a big ball of basil there. Down here we might pop a few mints or something small. Over the back I've got a couple of sweet potato slips in there, and in this pot here, when I find the seeds, I've got some cucumbers I want to pop in there. I'm going to try and plant 2 cucumbers in there and build a trellis behind. So that's what I've got planned for this garden. In the base of this one, just for the time being, these pots or these pouches are just sitting on the base. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm just letting that water be sucked up and used by the pots, but eventually I'll have some gravel in there, and the gravel will stop any mosquitoes from you know, laying their eggs and end up with wrigglers in there breeding mozzies. And over the back there I've left a bit of a gap, and I'm going to put a float valve, so that float valve will end up as being an auto top-up system for this little bed. And yeah, hopefully we'll get the advantage of it being a wicking and also air pruning as well. This is our Moringa tree, and as you can see we've got a couple of flowers on it. It has flowered before, but at the moment we've got a fair few that have started. There's a couple on the branches behind there, so I'm really pleased with the way that this tree is going at the moment. So this is the Moringa from top to bottom. She's around about 10 foot tall, a nice bit of size on it. and sharing the bed down the bottom there with a few different plants. We've got the marigolds around the base, and there's a little pocket of them just up the back there, and some little seedlings down the front. They're just self-sown, they've come through from last year's plants that were in there. Over the back there, a little bit harder to see, we have a Yacon. I can't remember honestly whether I planted that or whether it's a bit of a volunteer, so I have a feeling I may have popped just a rhizome in there that didn't look too healthy, just to see how it would go, and obviously it's taken off. So we've got a Yacon popping up in there, a couple of pavers that I've moved aside because I've started off a new compost pile. This compost pile was built a little bit differently to the last one, which I used pretty much all just horse manure and mulched up deciduous tree branches and leaves. This one here had a stable bagged stable scrapings, basically horse manure with a lot of sawdust and fine bits of wood chip. That is great, it makes a great mulch for your garden, feeds the soil up, the worms, the microbes in there, fantastic stuff. But for composting it's not that crash hot. The reason being is horse manure is pretty much, very close to having a perfect carbon-nitrogen ratio within it, so it will compost all by itself. When they add in the sawdust and the wood shavings and bits and pieces like that, it throws out your carbon and nitrogen ratio. So what I had to do with this pile here was I had to supplement the amount of nitrogen that went in with the horse manure. So what I did was, on my layer of horse manure, I sprinkled over some blood and bone. Blood and bone, some people, I think in America, it's sold as bone meal separately to blood meal. Over here it's sold together and they just call it blood and bone. I sprinkled a bit of that over there just to beef up the nitrogen content, just to get that manure and those wood chips composting. On top of that, I put a lot of garden scraps, mulched up corn plants from out the front, some bits and pieces. That's just some green onion trimmings, I think, from the other night when I harvested some. There's some juice, the leftovers from juicing in the house. I saved up a bucket of that and threw that in there as well. The galangal, the dried galangal leaves from out the back, the old Cape gooseberry plant, they all went in there to be composted down. I also put in a great deal of young Chinese elm twigs and leaves, mulched them up and threw them in there as well. They're just going to add to the nutrient diversity. Also too, threw in a couple of cane toads. They're a pest here in Australia, so I decided to pretty much mulch them as well. Might as well get rid of them, so they're in there as well, helping to fire up the activity in there. And I'm really pleased because if I look at my thermometer at the moment, it's sitting at just on 70 degrees and just under 160. I don't know if the camera can make that out quickly before it begins to drop. It's falling pretty rapidly, but it is definitely cooking away. The other thing I've put in there is the nesting box material from the chickens. That's rather warm. I changed out their nesting box material, so that went in there, and also some scrapings from underneath their perch. So a bit of chicken manure went in there as well. So I'm just really pleased with the way this is going. I don't know if you can work this out, but we've also got some fungus in there as well. That's just started on some sugarcane mulch I covered it over with. But yeah, that's cooking really well. So I'm really pleased with this one. It's going along nicely. Down here is where our Kaffir lime used to live. Unfortunately, it died. It got some sort of root rot, and I decided to pull him out, mainly because we have a Tahitian lime, just that big green ball there, over in the other end of the bed, and I really didn't want a virus to spread it all. So what I've ended up doing is planting some Yacon directly in the ground there, one there and one there, and also some sweet potato slips. I've got one there, one at the back, and another one on the side over there. They look to be doing all right. Next to it we have some more Purslane. That's just Purslane that's just popped up all by itself. It looks to be doing rather well. We've been knocking off branches here and there. We've got about 4 or 5 stands of it around the yard at the moment, so we're not harvesting from any one plant continuously, which is great because it's allowing them to bounce back. In that barrel we also have an onion poking over the back there. In the barrel next to it we have our turmeric. That's just the normal orange turmeric. That barrel's doing rather well. It's also got a sweet potato in it, as you can see from the bottom left hand corner there. The lime tree's doing rather well. I'm very happy with the amount of limes on there at the moment. It really does need a good pruning, so what I'll be doing is once a lot of these limes are mature, I'll be thinning from the centre of the tree out. You can't actually see the centre trunk in there anywhere, so I'm pretty much just going to thin out all the centre and trying to have probably 2 main branches, and from there a couple of sub branches coming off it. One of the reasons why I want to thin it out is we get a lot of gall wasps here in our area, and I really don't want them to basically attack the tree and kill it, because I have seen lemon trees over at my parents' place. They let the gall wasps go and they ended up being infested with these gnarly little galls all over the branches and stems. So I figure, well, I might as well clip out the centre, give it a little bit of air to breathe in the centre there, and we'll see how that goes. These are the wicking barrels I set up in series. They got strawberries and also a Yacon in the far one. The strawberries aren't, to tell you the truth, doing much chop at the moment. They're just surviving. Some very small flowers, very small fruit. I popped some bean plants in there. Actually, we'll go in for a better look. So these strawberries, they really aren't doing that crash hot in there. I don't know whether it's because there's excess moisture, which I don't think is really too much of a problem, or whether it's just the makeup of the soil blend I put in there, but they don't look to be doing that crash hot. The flowers are smaller than I expected, and so are the fruit, small fruit that are formed. So I am thinking about taking them out and putting them in other wicking beds in the garden. After the strawberries come out of these two barrels next to each other, I'll be popping in some cucumber or maybe a pumpkin or squash, something along those lines, something that will really make use of having all that moisture on hand. Before we go and look at the end barrel, these are just a couple of the purple Congo potatoes. I've already harvested 2 bags, but unfortunately I lost the vision of that harvest when the computer crashed. I don't think all the potatoes were very mature. Some of them, when we opened them up, were a nice deep rich purple, and some of the others were very white, so I just basically don't think they were mature enough. Your mate said there could also be a nutrient deficiency in the soil blend I've got in there. The soil in there is a makeup of commercial soil, also our homemade compost and store-bought compost. So it is fairly rich. It also had a good handful of natural fertiliser thrown in each bag as well. So I think it could be just maybe the potatoes weren't mature enough. I'll just show you the Yacon in this end barrel. So these Yacons in here started to get a bit of a leaf curl at the end, like the plants in the front IBC did last year. Nathan pointed out that it could be some sort of root rot, and that sort of, with these barrels being a little bit more moist than the normal wicking barrels, I thought that could have been a bit of an issue. But it looks like they're sort of, the new leaf growth isn't doing that. So I've got enough Yacon planted around in other spots in the yard that I think I might just leave these guys, see how they go. The other thought I had was maybe shutting off the feed line to these barrels so they get to dry out a bit, and then turn it on for a couple of days, let the reservoir fill up again. We'll just see how they go, but for now the new leaves look like, they're pretty healthy. They're not curling at all. So, and these beans are alright. They've got a little bit of a mottling in the leaves, so I think there is some sort of a nutrient deficiency. Mind you, these new ones are nice and dark, and of course we've had a sweet potato pop up out of nowhere in there, so I can't remember planting that, but yeah, we'll let him go and see what happens. Couple of barrels here at the entrance to the hoop house garden. The one on the right has southern cone marigold or Tagus minuta in it. We've been tipping them and throwing them in salads. A couple of the greens actually went into the compost when I was building it the other day. Next to it here we have Okinawan spinach. It's just flying along. I've been using it just as a salad green. Also got a couple of branches that I've harvested. I've thrown them in the aquaponics. You can't see them, but just up in there, and they're doing really well just as cuttings. So this stuff here is going to end up hopefully in our morning juices as well, if I can get enough plants going in the patch. Next to it we have our bean and okra bed. The okra is doing really well. I've been eating a pod. I've pretty much all been eating the pods by myself, to tell you the truth, when I come down and do a bit of a walk in the patch every morning. I've got some lettuce that's going to seed down the bottom. Up the back we have our Blue Lake climbing beans. They've been hit with a bit of a rust or a bit of a mite problem. We're getting a small handful of beans off there, but nowhere near the production I would have thought we should be getting. I haven't grown these guys in years, well over a decade, so yeah, I can't really remember what sort of a production we got out of them in the past, but definitely more than 3 or 4 beans a plant every couple of days, I think. Go for a bit of a wander down into the patch here. The turmeric in this wicking barrel, this one was underneath the Tahitian Lime last year, it's absolutely flown along. The only thing I can really attribute it to is using the young tree mulch. Basically, a couple of years ago we took a whole heap of small stems and leaves from the Chinese elm, and we just mulched them up, let them compost down a bit, and I put them fairly thick on there, probably about a good 5 to 10 centimetres, so what's that, 2 to 4 inches deep, and they're slowly broken down. There's just a thin layer on the top there now, and this stuff has just flown along. I'm just really impressed with how much turmeric is just growing from a single barrel. Very impressed. Different type to the other one I showed you just before. This is a Madras. It's a yellow, a little bit more bitter turmeric. Something we weren't too happy with to begin with, but we've grown to love it. I throw it in my morning juices. Bianca's not a big fan. Down here is our long purple eggplant. As you can see, it's been assaulted rather badly. The culprit is this little lady down here, or fella. Oh, he just flew away. It's a 28 or 26 spot ladybug. What they do is basically hoe into the leaves. They make these little gnaw marks down here. You can see the little tracks they leave, and they just demolish them. I have actually lost plants, little seedlings to those guys in the past. The other plant they attack is the cucumber, but for some reason they haven't hit the cucumber up the back here. Not too sure why that is. Actually, we'll go round. Hello ladies, there's two of the three. So these cucumber seeds came from an online mate. Thank you very much. They're just flying along. We're getting a couple of cucumbers every 2 or 3 days. We got 2 on these 2 plants. I actually thought I only had 2, but I planted 2 plants here, and there's another 2 planted further up. And over there we have a few more cucumbers on. There's one just in there that you might be able to make out, and there's a couple of small ones just on a bit of wire that I've got strung between the 2 beds over there. So I'm really chuffed with these. They've kept us in cucumbers now for weeks. I think we bought one to juice a while back, but yeah, been really happy with these guys. Actually, I'll show you our other cucumbers. These Armenian cucumbers are pretty much all dying off, as you can see. We've let 3 go to seed. There's a large one there and a large one down there and a stumpy marrow looking one on the other side. We pretty much will let them go to seed, and as soon as that happened, the female flowers stopped. We got about 10 to 12, nice size one we were juicing. We found they're a very crisp cucumber. They're not like the long Lebanese and the other style of cucumbers. Very crisp, very crunchy. They went absolutely fantastic in morning juices. But as you can see, I'll try and come up and zoom in without jerking around too much. Just been smashed by powdery mildew, and also the 28 spot lady beetle. That's one of the larvae there. That's what the little 28 or 26 spot lady beetle larvae look like. They're just absolutely decimating the leaves. You can see the little tracks they've left where they're eating it. Basically the same little pests that we're getting on the eggplants that I showed you before. But yeah, these plants, they're pretty much all a write-off, I figure. The powdery mildew's pretty much all got to them. With the seeds we're going to collect from the fruit, they're pretty much all going to go out the front or in the wicking barrels under the lime tree bed. We'll definitely be able to fit another sowing of these guys in before summer ends here. Just to give you a bit of an idea of the size of the fruit on these guys. This guy over the back here is pretty much all round about, I'd say about 1.75 foot long. He's hit the ground and pretty much all stopped growing. This one down here though is a different story altogether. He's roughly, I'd say he's just pushing 2 foot in length, and there is another one just in here that is a nice size as well. He looks more like a zucchini or a marrow actually, but yeah, I'm really pleased with the way these guys have gone. Just the amount of fruit we got just set so quickly, and yeah, we were just throwing them through the juices every morning. Absolutely fantastic. A bit of a shame I couldn't keep up with the powdery mildew, but such is. The seeds, I'll be able to share them around to a few folks. Just a bit of parsley going to seed here. This is just the flat leaf Italian stuff. We've got one plant here that we have been picking bits and pieces off that hasn't gone to seed yet. So yeah, always nice to get a bit before it goes to flower. Bit of a quick look at this mouse melon. It's come back with a vengeance. It's already up over the top of the insect netting, nice and thick, full of small fruit, and growing up over the top of the hoop house. I think I'm actually going to have to trim it back because there's no way I can get fruit from up there. It's already got loads of small fruit on it. There's a few more up in there. It's just absolutely loaded yet again, so these guys will be making an appearance in salads again, and I think we're going to get more than enough this year to be able to pickle a whole heap. This has got to be the largest golden purslane plant we have growing in the patch at the moment, and the one we've been harvesting from the most. I've found that the more you harvest it, the faster it grows. It's absolutely fantastic stuff, and seriously, if you get a chance, try it. Absolutely fantastic. Actually, I don't know if you can see down in there, the flowers are pretty much all finished, and the seeds have started to, there we go, form. I have a whole load of fine little delicate seeds I'm just about to sprinkle on a bed behind me, and they'll make, you know, that's just one little pod, that one little pod. So the potential of this plant to just become a weed is quite obvious. There's a whole heap more in there that have just fallen off, so I'll just sprinkle them on bed behind me. But yeah, a fantastic salad green, high in omega-3, which is fairly rare for a plant, so definitely something to have in your patch just to throw in your salads. This bed here has our Chinese keys ginger. It's pretty much all, another name for it is finger ginger, an easier way to explain it. Basically you end up with a whole heap of fingers going straight down into the ground. We haven't harvested it yet, the same as the Kaffir ginger, which is an Indonesian one we have outside in a barrel. We just wanted to let it grow for 2 whole years before we harvest it, just to try and get a larger root mass to split up and grow again. In here I threw another bean. I just walked around after I harvested our Simba bush beans and popped beans in everywhere. This is another one. Had a couple of hot days in the mid to high 30s, and I think some of them have got slightly burnt, but yeah, we're starting to see a few buds form on that one. And over the back there is another one of Tim. He's the chap who gave me the Armenian cucumbers, some golden beetroot, touchstone gold I think, and I'm just leaving him in there. We've been nipping off the leaves here and there, so I like to have a few beetroots available for the leaves. We'll see if that one goes to seed. It'd be great if we could get some go to seed. These 2 top beds here are just going to be left lay fallow for the rest of summer. The main reason being is they've been worked constantly since about 2010, I think they first went in. There's just been crop after crop after crop. I've been feeding them up with manures and purchased compost, some homemade compost, wood chips. They've had wood chips on them at different times that we've composted down, organic fertilisers, natural fertilisers, mulches. There's compost worms in there, but I think they really do need a rest. What I've done is put a layer of the stable scrapings over the top with a handful of natural fertiliser, put the sugarcane mulch down, and I'm just going to leave them go. I mean, there's still plants in this one here. We've got some perpetual leeks there and further down behind the potatoes there, and our market chilli, we'll just leave them in there. And just over there we've got a bright light silver beet and a jalapeno, but they're the only plants we're going to let grow in there. The rest of the beds are pretty much just going to be left alone. I also do have just over here some potatoes in a bag, 4 bags. We've got a couple of purple Congo and 2 bags of Desiree. And I have a fennel that we've let go to flower because I want to save the seeds. But other than that, these beds are just going to be left alone. Whether they end up being used again is another thing. 4 years, I have a feeling this top bed here is a wicking bed. I have a feeling the liner has been breached by roots either from the lime trees that were there. I mean, we got Chinese elms just over that way off screen, and mango that way. I've seen mango roots grow up the outside of liners over the top and pull them down. We've lost 2 wicking beds that way, so I have a feeling this bed here has been breached. I've filled it up, and within 24 hours the water table has dropped dramatically. So this bed will be coming out. Whether it ends up being smaller IBC wicking beds going in its place using the soil that's in there, or we might just decide to put an aquaponic grow bed in here. Bianca and I are working through our options with that one, so we're not too sure. This bed here though, we're going to treat a little bit differently. We're going to fill it up with water, and we'll see what happens with the water level. If it falls quickly, we know the roots are in there, we'll dig it out, we'll rebuild it, we'll change the way the reservoir's set up, but it will remain a wicking bed. If the water table stays nice and high, we know the roots haven't penetrated it, and yeah, we'll just be able to keep it as a normal wicking bed. And I'm sure that the compost worms in there will love feeding on the manure and the mulch we put over the top for summer, so it'll just be put back into service during winter. Same thing with this bed here. We're going to let it do its own thing over summer. We're just going to grow the turmeric out in there. There's some ginger that's just started to sprout down the base of the screen here, and we also have some more perpetual leeks that we harvest all the time, and green onion, or what we call spring onion here. So this bed won't be planted out. We're just going to let it run its course. So there you go folks, there's a bit of an extended look at what's going on in the backyard at the moment. While it's not overly productive, I mean, we're more than happy with the amount of eggplants and cucumbers we're getting. With a few changes that are going on in the aquaponics, hopefully we're going to get a whole lot more greens coming through there. I mean, in summer we tend to eat a lot more greens. It's just too hot and humid. I mean, today's 36 centigrade and I'm just, I'm dripping. We have 40 degrees yesterday roughly, and we've got 38 tomorrow. So we're just in the low hundreds Fahrenheits, and very humid, very overcast. So yeah, we're not really eating a lot of the things like, pumpkins and zucchinis and that sort of thing. More the leafy greens. Some nice table tomatoes that go down nicely, but we're just satisfied with the small yellows at the moment. But in saying that, I'm pretty content with the way things are going. Growing a lot more spice this year. Those potatoes, they'll go great in potato salads once they get harvested, hopefully in the next week or so. But yeah, I'll stop rabbiting on. I am going to post another clip very soon, just a few question and answers. I get a lot of questions sent through PMs on Facebook and also through to our email account, so I just want to cover a couple of them, just about who we are and why we do what we do. So a bit of a short clip on that. But yeah, anyway, I'll pretty much will leave it there. If you do have any comments, questions or suggestions, pop in the comments section below and I shall get back to you in a timely fashion. Other than that, I hope you guys all have an absolutely fantastic one. I hope you're all going to be enjoying the holidays next week, however you celebrate, and I shall catch you hopefully before the New Year's. See ya!